It's tile day on this bathroom job. Come join us for this edition of Forever Home. We'll show you the progress we're making on this bathroom renovation and talk a little about what goes into a successful tile job. That's up next on this edition of Forever Home. Here we go. So making some significant progress here in the bathroom. You can see the tile's already gone up on the exterior wall here. Of course, we have this exterior wall as well. This is going to be our wet wall where the shower valve and everything's going to be, where they've asked us to put their niche. I think we covered this in the last video, putting these windows in, and then of course using the various different air sealing techniques that we talked about in the back, putting foam backer rod all the way around the edges of this, putting the air dam product in on this side of it to keep any water that ever got into these jams in such a way that it can get down and drain to the outside. Drainage and drying, very important whenever you're installing windows, doing any kind of siding, capping, those types of things. And then we've taken our waterproofing product, our 𝗷𝘂𝘀𝘀, and run that in here on this side as well. So any water that ever got behind the tile this direction, again, would be forced to this side and in, and it can't get into the framing of these walls. That allows us to then bring our bullnose tile, set that right up to the frame of the window itself. We'll grout all that in, and then the only spot that it is open to potential water getting to it is right here on the very edge of these sills. So a couple other details that go into all of this. Of course, we set the prefab pan that we purchased into a layer of bed mud to help support that, center that. Got our drain connected. That was a little bit of fiasco in this case because we didn't have access from down below and had some challenges with glue setting up a little quicker than normal, so we had to take that back apart and do some gymnastics to get that back together. But that's happy now. We did a pressure test on it, flood test on it, where we put a balloon into the line, filled that up with air, and then poured water down the drain line and make sure that held and there weren't any leaks in the system. Everything is happy on that front. So once we put our pan in, we then built our bench behind it. Now you notice that this stayed back. There are benches that are built into the glass, and if we were doing a swing door, then that would be just fine here. In this case, we're doing a sliding door, and so we need a pocket for that sliding door to slide into. So what you're gonna see here is that we have built a small recessed pocket, and that slopes down on each side. Spin you around the other way. You can see the taper on this where the sill of the door is gonna slope in just a little bit, and then we have a big piece of marble for here, and then this sill slopes back the other way. And any water that ever got through the grout in these tiles is gonna drain right into the pan and then down into the thing. And we wouldn't expect it to get a lot through there, but you wanna make sure that's done. Once we had the framing for this done and the 𝗷𝘂𝘀𝘀 on the walls, then of course we painted everything with 2 or 3 coats of 𝗷𝘂𝘀𝘀𝑓ense, and all of our joints were melted with some mortar mix, so we've got a good solid seam here for that 𝗷𝘂𝘀𝑓ense to bond into, making this an impermeable membrane. So the next step after you get that done is of course to start laying out your tile. Norm's done a great job of trying to set in the format. We did have a good conversation with the customer. When doing this brick pattern with this size tile, you're always going to have the chance of bumping into some sort of a sliver somewhere. And in spite of the best, you try to measure and figure everything out ahead of time, but it just doesn't always work out. So if you want even short pieces of tile here to match the even short pieces of tile here, and you look and you see where everything is, in this particular layout, we went up with a couple of slivers on the side, and that is the downside to using a brick pattern. And it just depends on where your window is and what size it is, and you try to take all that stuff into account. And there's always the chance that when you get to the finished product and you start laying it out and getting it on the wall with your final dimensions, that it's possible you're gonna have a sliver somewhere. So where do you want it? Unless you're gonna have a wider piece here and a very narrow piece here, or none at all. There's other ways, but you're going to pick up something that's not gonna be symmetrical. So the fun part with tile work is to try to figure out where you want those unsymmetrical pieces to show up. If you're going to have them, where's the least noticeable spot, or where do you care the least about, or where do you think that it's the most visually appealing? In this case, the customer chose that we were going to put them on the left side of the window there, and we think that's a beautiful decision. It flows with the pattern, everything works, it looks nicely. We're going to roll with that. So Norm started working on the front wall here today, and you can see that this is building up nicely. And the same thing, we're putting up, we've got a sliver, well, not a sliver, we got a 2-inch piece and a 2-inch piece, and then more like an 8-inch piece and an 8-inch piece. As we build the pattern, he can work his way up, make his cuts, keep going. And no matter what you do, you're building on somebody else's foundation, things aren't always square. We had been cutting all of these the same, and we get to the top up here, and that top one's a little bit more narrow because that wall's in just a little bit at the top. Such is life. We're gonna make it work. So he cut that down a little bit. You'll never see it, but from a construction perspective, it'd be easier if everything was exactly perfect and amazing and plumb, and it's just not always the way that it works out. So he's got his Schluter strip set up on this side, so we're ready to go to tile up to that. We're of course gonna have our marble threshold down here at the bottom, the face on this, and once we get the shower complete, then we'll be working that tile out across the floor of the bathroom and doing the rest of this space as well. The old shower area is just gonna be storage for now. Eventually they may purchase some cabinets, maybe a counter to put in here, but for now this is just gonna be storage space and a little bit of privacy for the toilet that's gonna be in here, and then our vanity of course going back on this side of things. Anytime you're working with tile, the goal is to make sure everything is as smooth as you can get it, as far as all of your joints go, that you want everything lined up symmetrical. There are two types of tile, some that have very rounded edges and they flow nicely into the grout. So if you have some imperfections in the tile lay where you don't get everything exactly, the wall's not square, or you don't get everything exactly flush, the same amount of mortar on the back of everything. If you have some imperfections and you have a rounded edge tile, you can hide that a lot nicer at the grout face. This is a very square edge tile. So if there's any imperfections in the installation where we don't get, that tile exactly the same depth as the one next to it, it's gonna be much more pronounced. So we've got to work really diligently to try to stay ahead of those types of things and make sure that nothing moves after you're set. You'll notice that Norm's got tile spacers on every one of his tiles down here because he wants to make sure that everything stays the perfect size, the right consistency, that nothing's moving and falling out of place in the process of what else is going on. One of the other things we did before we put the door rock on was to do our pressure test. And so this is a pressure test cap that comes with the Delta multi-choice valves, which I love that. And then of course we just stubbed in a PVC cap with a piece of shark bite and some thread into the half-inch thread into the fitting. And we were able to put pressure on this system and let it sit for 2 or 3 days over a weekend and make sure that there was no challenges, no water leaks that were going on with the system before we put the D-rock up and covered everything up. Because once you get tile on the wall, getting back into it is very difficult unless you're going to go back in from the back side. So make sure you pressure test your system before you start tiling. Some features that folks will ask for in a shower, some of the ladies might like to have a soap dish down at foot level, just something they can put their foot in to support their leg while they're shaving, doing different things. Other ladies like to opt to have the seat in the back. Some people have asked for a full-size niche down low. So a little footrest or a corner shelf or someplace, just to prop your foot up on is one of those features that some people ask for. Almost everyone asks for some sort of a niche, sometimes his and hers, matching too. We can get these in different heights, or this one's actually adjustable. We could set that middle section wherever they wanted it, and so that's what they decided is the right height for the products that they use in the shower. And figuring out what you want in your tile shower space is a huge consideration as you're laying out, as you're planning, as you're designing. Now, you can't see it because the plywood's down here, but this is a pre-sloped shower base. Everything slopes in the same direction together, which allows you to do slightly larger format tiles relatively easily without worrying about trying to cut and pitch everything towards a center drain. So this has got an end drain, which we'll show you when the project is done. It's a channel drain, and everything slopes uniformly towards that. Now, we're still using a small format tile like you see over here in the corner, but we have that base so that if the customer had chosen a little bit larger format, it would go nice and smooth, and we like the channel drain option. I do prefer the tile over because if you ever have a shower head that drips, you don't want to hear that tink, 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 tink as the water lands on that drain when everything is said and done. So we like the channel drains, we like the pre-slope pans. They have systems that you can do your own, and when you start thinking about the time involved in your labor to do that versus buying the prefab pan, sometimes the prefab pan is very cost effective for both the contractor and the customer, and it gives you a very pretty look when everything is said and done. Now, sometimes when you see us tile a bathroom, you'll see us install a starter board, 1 row of tiles or 2 rows of tiles up, and we'll build up from that so that gravity can't push anything, so that we don't have to we can tile the floor last after we've done all the work in here. In this particular case, because of the shape of things and the size tile that we're using, Norm felt it was better to get the floor in first and then protect it with plywood and then build on top of that, and that's fine too. 2 different approaches that you can use. If you're ever going to do a glass inlay, say that someone that has for a glass inlay around here, the same thing. We would tile the wall, we would bring everything up, and then we would put a board across level where that glass inlay is going to go. We wouldn't put the glass in yet. We'd build everything above that because the glass with those narrow rows in it doesn't have the ability to support the weight of the tile up above it. So you want to have that board hung there and then all your other tiles set first, and then go back and set the glass in where there's no pressure, there's no weight, there's nothing pushing down on it. So you can get a nice, clean, good look. If you tried to tile over, there's a chance that it would crush, it would squish, and your grout lines wouldn't be even. You'd have things like this going across your tile pattern, and that would be ugly. So we want to make sure that if you're doing anything glass inlay or something that's going to be lots of little tiny finger pieces, small pieces, that you do it as a separate step, and you're going to need to run a horizontal board level at that point and then continue building on top of that, leaving a gap for where that special product's going to go in. One of the other really important considerations when you're going to design a shower, knowing that you're going to put a door on it, whether it's a heavy glass door, a frameless, a glass door with a frame, or the sliding rolling one that we're getting in this particular, is to make sure that you get blocking in the wall. So we've got a 2x6 turned flat here, and we may have a picture of that we can show you. I believe we also have a stud pack right here with a series of them all together, so that we have plenty of holding power should we decide to put a big heavy glass door in there in the future. We've already put that in. So let's talk about the lighting package for this particular project. We've got a number of switches here. We've put the exhaust fan on a timer so that when you leave the bathroom in the morning when you're going to work, you can set that exhaust fan for a 30-minute run, and it'll run to help exhaust it, but you're not going to let it run all day long. Same thing, you can go to bed at night, you can put that on a timer. We also have built-in heat on this Panasonic unit that we've put in for them. There's a night light, there's the overhead light, we've got our pin light right here at the door, And then of course our vanity lights, and those are all controlled separately. And you can put, you can pair switches up. Some people like to have a reading light over the toilet. In this case, we don't need one there because the shower light's pretty much in that same vicinity. So there's other ideas of ways that you can think about how you want to break your lighting up. On this particular job, we decided to give them individual controls. This might be a nice light to have on in the evenings as you're getting ready for bed. You don't want to have all the lights on in the bathroom, but just enough to see to get in. There's also going to be a night light in that Panasonic unit, which is again a nice feature for when you're getting up in the middle of the night and you want to be able to see, but you don't want to wake yourself up. That incandescent night light, little 10-watt unit, is a beautiful feature to have when you're putting in your shower exhaust fan. Now with this exhaust fan, we have set this up to vent to the outside. It comes out this end of the unit, makes a hard 90, and goes out this gable wall and pops out the outside, and then we're going to put a bird basket on there to help make sure that none of our starlings find their way in and be making a nest in there. But this is a nice unit. It's got a good damper system to it and does a real nice job of exhausting the air, but not allowing outside exterior air to come back into your house. So the customer called us for this job specifically because they had reached out to another bathroom specific company. The bathroom specific company did not want to have anything to do with replacing the windows for them. They wanted to have somebody else do that first, and then they would come in and do the bathroom for them. And so the customer was reaching out to some of their friends and family, different people that they knew. They'd heard about us, and we were able to do the whole package deal for them. So when you've got a problem that involves more than one trade, 𝗂𝘁 Construction Renovation, we take care of it all for you. So here's that bathroom from the backyard. You can see the two windows here that we put in, and then this is our exhaust vent for that fan coming out the gable wall. And I really like to bring them out the gable wall whenever possible. There are some contractors that like to run them out through the roof, but that's one more roof penetration, one more opportunity for something to leak. I've seen guys run them down into the soffits, but the problem with bringing them out the soffits is that's supposed to be your intake for your attic. So even if you exhaust the air through a soffit vent, it's going to get sucked in with the intake air and take that moist air right back up the attic. If I can point the right direction, it's going to take that exhaust air and suck it right back up the attic, and you're potentially doing damage to the underside of your plywood sheathing or your OSB sheathing on your roof deck. So my preference is bringing it out the side where it's away from those intake areas where we're not going to vent that exhaust back in to the attic space. So siding all came down, windows came out, new windows went in, siding all went back up, and we're onto the inside with all the tile work. So what problem can we solve for you? Roofing, siding, windows, doors, decks, kitchens, bathrooms, basements, plumbing, electrical, drywall, spackle, paint. Build you a custom dream home in addition to garage. There's nothing our team doesn't do. Take a picture of what's bugging you. Send it to us on our Facebook page. That is the fastest way to reach us. Click that contact us button there at the top. Send our team a message with all your contact details, some photos of your project, what it is that you want done, and our team can get started on working our process with you. We have a dedicated office staff standing by to answer your calls weekdays 9:30 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon at 484-748-0008. Choose option 2 for 𝗂𝘁, your full service construction and renovation company, and extension 2 for new projects. 𝗂𝘁 is your full service construction and renovation company and a Pennsylvania home improvement contractor, number 88078, licensed in Newcastle County, Delaware as well. If you're watching on Facebook, leave a comment down below, share this with some friends, like it, and make sure you're hanging out and liking our page so you get all the updates, cool things that we're doing here. If you're on YouTube, like the video, tell YouTube you found it valuable, leave a comment down below, ask us some questions about what you saw in the video here today. Hit that subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get updated about all of our cool projects and all the neat stuff going on here at 𝗂𝘁 Construction and Renovation. Remember, we're finished with your project. You'll be proud to say it's not just done. It was 𝗂𝘁 built. We'll catch you guys on the next edition of Forever Home. Bye for now.